ABC Radio Perth, WA and the ABC Listener.
And now, new figures that came out yesterday showing smoking rates in WA had increased for the first time in 30 years, got the phones running hot. Now, it used to be about 10% of the population, now it's about 12%. And a lot of you blamed the tobacco black market. Well, one anti-smoking lobby group has done its own audit to get an idea of how many shops are selling illegal cigarettes and vapes. So what did it find? Well, let's ask Laura Hunter, who is the CEO of the Australian Council on Smoking and Health. Laura, good morning.
Good morning, Nadia.
Sounds like you've done some of the work that maybe the government or the health department should be doing. But first of all, tell me about the audit. What did you do?
So it's really hard to work out the size of an illegal trade. Everyone battles with that. And what we wanted to know was what's the problem on the ground in the community in Perth and how is this problem playing out in the Perth suburbs? Because there is a tendency to think it's the CBD and it's a Northbridge issue. But what our audit shows is that it's happening in your suburb and it's happening in mine. So we went out to over 100 stores and 50% of them were selling illegal tobacco or illegal vapes. And 80% of those were located within 1 kilometre of a school.
Okay, so what sort of stores? Were they generally those little pop-up convenience stores that we've been seeing popping up all across the city that, and regional WA as well, that, don't have a lot of stock on the floor? And it's kind of pretty obvious what they're doing.
Yeah, absolutely. Look, it varied, Nadia. It was gift shops, convenience stores, existing tobacconists, and they weren't trying to hide this. They were operating in broad daylight, and they were doing that because they're not afraid of being caught or being shut down. I want to make it really clear that the health department at the moment is working really hard with what they've got, but the tobacco laws just aren't keeping up. And we've spoken about this over the years, Nadia, a lot. So we are calling on Minister Hammett to really get these law updates moving. WA needs the power to shut down these stores straight away and to also hit offenders with penalties that really bite. You'll know as well that other states like South Australia and Queensland have already done this and it's working. So South Australia in January this year released some data showing smoking and vaping rates are dropping and we need to see this happening in WA.
Well, the Premier, Roger Cook, was asked about this yesterday during a media conference and was specifically asked about where that legislation is. That Cole Blanche, the Police Commissioner, has told me he would like, because I also, and I've said this before, I don't think there's a lot of health department people that would want to be going and confronting some of these illegal tobacco sellers, given that there's a lot of organised crime behind it.
Yeah, absolutely. And that's what we're also advocating for, Nadia. We're saying that police and health need to work together as a coalition to actually get on top of these stores. And that's what South Australia is doing and that's what Queensland is doing. And we are advocating strongly for WA to kind of follow suit with that as well.
Well, this is what the Premier had to say yesterday.
Legislation just doesn't come out of, magically appear overnight. We're working on the policy frameworks and the nature of that legislation. So we certainly want to make sure that comes forward. There is a gap, I think, in our oversight of tobacco in Western Australia. It's not illegal to have tobacco. It is illegal to sell tobacco products outside the laws. And so it essentially falls between federal oversights and state oversight in relation to that. So we want to beef up those laws to make sure that Commissioner Blanche has all the powers he needs.
And Laura, what I would suggest to the Premier is that this is not an issue that appeared overnight.
Yes, we have been asking for updates to the tobacco legislation for a long time, for a number of years, under multiple health ministers. And I like the fact that, the Premier is on record saying, look, we want to see this happen and we know that there are gaps. It's a really good thing. But this is not something that we've been asked to turn around quickly. We've been talking to the WA government on this for a long time. And what we're seeing as of yesterday with that data and that increase in 2%, we need to start looking at fast-tracking legislative updates and doing it sooner rather than later, because this tobacco is still killing 66 Australians every day.
Gee, Laura Hunter's my guest, the CEO of the Australian Council on Smoking and Health. Another thing to ask the Health Minister about, because I'm pretty sure that this change in legislation falls under her remit. I've got a long list of things that I would love to ask the Health Minister. But can I just go back to your audit for a moment, Laura, because the shops, you talked about gift stores, news agencies and also shops that have a licence to sell tobacco. So you're saying even in those licensed stores that can legally sell tobacco, they're still also selling under the counter because it's cheaper and they'll make more sales?
100%. They are. They absolutely are. So there are other provisions whereby we could look at compliance efforts to, tackle that. But at the end of the day, the quicker and easier way of doing this and the faster way of doing this is giving the tools to compliance and enforcement officers by changing the laws to shut down these stores regardless. But yeah, it's 50% of 100 stores, Nadia, is significant. It's alarming, that number.
How cheap were some of the cigarettes? I know that my local will give me a packet for $20 because I asked him.
Mm-hmm. Some of them were selling for $15, and wow. Even with the vapes as well, we found that some of the retailers were price gauging, the appetite of the people coming in. So, if you're younger, you're often given a cheaper vape.
Were there common brands?
Yeah, there were common brands. Manchester Lights is one of the most common, and the price varies. But the problem we have is that price is the biggest factor and the most effective measure to reduce smoking, particularly for young people. And the illegal trade undermines that by making cigarettes cheaper, making them easier to get. And this audit really shows us the sooner we get on top of that, the better.
And did you find a particular type of cigarette that's actually banned now? Was it like a menthol cigarette or something?
So as of my understanding, it's July 2025. Yeah, menthol is banned. And I believe some of the illicit vapes do contain menthol. But Nadia, I don't want to give any sentiment that, there are safe cigarettes and there are not safe cigarettes. Any cigarette is lethal. It's toxic and deadly. And what we're looking at is supply and demand. We want to get the most amount of people quitting, and we want to stop kids taking this up in the first place.
And did anyone, I don't know the kind of people you were using to go and do these audits, but did any people you use look under 18 and maybe get asked for ID?
Nobody got asked for ID, Nadia.
And did some of
None
the
of
people
our field workers.
And did some of your field workers look like they should have been?
Yes, they did. Absolutely. So it's definitely an issue, and it needs to be tackled head on. Absolutely.
Laura Hunter, final question for you. And I got these text messages yesterday, and I'm getting them again today. People saying, and the Premier said, one of the other reasons why the smoking rates may have gone up is because there's more migrants here and have come from countries where smoking is still popular. Do you agree with that?
No, I do not agree with that. There's no research or evidence to suggest that that's the case. The reason why we have an issue here in WA is because the tobacco legislation hasn't been updated fast enough. And we would be advocating strongly that is what the Premier should be talking about, as opposed to blaming anyone else.
And final question, you found that, quite a lot of these were within a kilometre, I think 80% within a kilometre of a school. Do you think that's very strategic, very deliberate?
I think there is one of the stores, Nadia, sold Labubu dolls and alongside vapes. These vapes being driven by the tobacco industry are absolutely targeting children and young people. There is no doubt about that. The tobacco industry is relentless in generating new products, new ideas to hook new people and new generations onto their products. Positioning them next to schools is insane. It's ridiculous, and it needs to stop right now.
All right, well, we'll leave it there, and thank you very much for doing that work. Laura Hunter there, the CEO of the Australian Council on Smoking and Health. Yes, Nadia, smoking is back. I've seen 3 people in the last 3 days hang that cigarette outside their car window, flicking it until it's finished, and then finally flick it onto the road. It annoys me, Steve. I have not seen that in a long time. Flicking a cigarette out a window. I mean, you shouldn't do it, littering, and it's a bushfire risk if you're in the country, but really? I mean, I have not seen